You keep staring, should I be flattered? The story opens in a quiet, lived-in environment, somewhere normal, unromantic at face value, a friend's living room after a small dinner, a lobby after a work event, or a quiet cafe late evening. The narrator is not seeking attention, but he is quietly aware of her, a woman in her early 40s, composed posture, calm voice, a presence that fills space without trying. She has that kind of beauty that comes not from youth but from self-assurance, from looking like someone who has lived through storms and did not break. The narrator notices small things first, the way she slides her glasses up the bridge of her nose with a graceful, practiced motion, the light indentation at the corner of her mouth when she half smiles at someone else's comment, the soft clink of her bracelets when she rests her arm on the table. He tries not to be obvious, but his attention keeps drifting back to her as though gravity has opinions of its own. Emotionally, Part 1 is about internal realization without action. He does not speak to her yet. He is only learning what she does to him, the low-grade tightening under his ribs, the way his thoughts slow down when she laughs, the faint prickle of awareness when their lines of sight accidentally cross. The audience should feel that he is not choosing to be attracted, it is happening to him in real time, against his better judgment. We include subtle sensory awareness. He feels the faint warmth of the room, the soft hum of distant conversation, the scent of something faintly floral when she walks past, not strong, just enough to leave a ghost of presence near him. When she laughs at something someone else says, the sound lands in him deeper than it should. This is the first seed of forbidden softness. Midway through the keynote, create a micro-moment, she reaches across the table for something, maybe a glass, a book, a folded napkin, and her sleeve brushes the back of his hand. It's barely a touch, not even intentional, but it sends a quiet spark through him. He does not pull back immediately. Instead, there is a heartbeat of shared stillness before she continues what she was doing. She doesn't look at him, and that absence of acknowledgement is somehow worse, because it lets the moment live inside him alone. Part 1 ends with the moment she finally catches him looking for one beat too long. Their eyes lock, not politely, not accidentally, but with full awareness. Her expression doesn't change, but he can tell she noticed. And he knows, as his pulse kicks once in his throat, that the air between them is no longer neutral. No words are spoken yet, only that shared, silent confirmation that something has started, whether either of them wanted it to or not. The scene continues without time jump, the moment after she has caught him looking. Instead of turning away with embarrassment, the narrator holds her gaze for a second longer than instinct would normally allow. That brief defiance, not aggressive, just unmasked, changes the tone. She lifts a brow, not with annoyance but with a kind of amused curiosity, like someone watching an unexpected move in a chess game. He looks away first, but not fast, slowly, controlled, as if admitting silently, "Yes, I was looking." The room's conversation hums on around them, but inside the narrator everything is newly heightened. He becomes acutely aware of how close she is, of the warmth of the room, of the tension that now exists between just the two of them in the middle of a crowd. He busies himself with something, a glass in his hand, straightening a sleeve, anything to steady himself. After a few minutes she moves, not away, but closer, choosing a seat or spot that brings her into his conversational radius for the first time. It is deliberate without being blatant. When she speaks, she doesn't address him directly at first, she joins whatever group remark is happening. But he can feel her presence now in his peripheral vision, the cadence of her voice threading through every other sound in the room. Eventually, a natural conversational bridge forms. Someone makes a comment that allows her to look his way and include him. Her tone is light, social, harmless on the surface. But her eyes remain steady on him slightly longer than is necessary, measuring him, testing whether the attention she noticed earlier was an accident or a choice. The emotional goal of this part is to shift from silent attraction to mutual recognition. She is no longer a passive awareness, she is now participating. She leans a hand against the back of the couch near where he sits, and the distance between them shrinks enough that he can feel the warmth radiating from her arm. Her perfume lingers faintly, something subtle, elegant, maybe jasmine or amber, and the proximity makes him swallow before he speaks. There should be one brief private exchange, a low remark, maybe a quiet aside or a softly delivered line that only he hears clearly. Something along the lines of her catching his earlier stare without saying the exact words yet. The exchange is short but weighted. She is signaling that she noticed, and she is neither offended nor indifferent. By the end of part 2, the world around them feels dimmer, less relevant. The real story is now occurring inside the charged silence between two people who haven't yet acknowledged what is happening out loud. He leaves that section aware that he is no longer just drawn to her. Now she is aware, and she has chosen not to shut the door. The next move, whether safe or reckless, will no longer happen in secrecy. This part begins in the same setting, but the room is starting to empty. Guests are leaving, conversations thinning out, laughter fading to background noise. The lighting is softer now, and there's a natural lull that allows quiet talk without interruption. The narrator and the woman are no longer separated by other people. Space and circumstance have closed the gap for them. She stands close enough that when she speaks to someone beside him, her sleeve grazes his forearm again, a light, accidental contact that shouldn't matter but does. He is hyper-aware of every inch of proximity, the subtle warmth of her body through thin fabric, the faint scent that drifts every time she moves, the low steadiness in her voice when she talks. He answers a question someone else asks him, but his focus is fractured. Part of him is watching her in his peripheral vision, tuned to her in a way he cannot undo. When the others step away for a moment, to the kitchen, to the door, to gather their things, the first truly private moment between them appears. She doesn't step back when they are left alone. She stays where she is, arms gently folded, weight shifted slightly to one hip, studying him with that same amused, contained awareness. There is no discomfort, only a quiet confidence that she is in control of herself, and curious whether he is. He tries to find something neutral to say, a safe remark about the evening, but she cuts through the surface layer with one soft, quiet line, low enough that only he can hear it. No arrogance, no seduction, just a fact delivered like a challenge. You keep staring, should I be flattered? The delivery matters. It is not scolding, not coy. It is perceptive, direct, and unmistakably aware. She is naming what both of them already knew without humiliating him. She is inviting him to answer without handing him the script. His reaction is physical first, heat rising in his chest, a slight tightening in his throat, the sudden need to choose between backing away or meeting the moment. He forces himself not to look away this time. The room is quiet enough that he can hear the small friction of her bracelets when she adjusts her arms, the soft exhales she lets out as she waits. He doesn't confess, doesn't stutter, doesn't over-explain. He gives a controlled, slightly restrained answer. Something like, I wasn't trying to be rude. Not denying, not apologizing, only acknowledging her accuracy without surrendering entirely. Emotionally, part 3 is the first boundary crossing with words. There is no touch yet beyond incidental contact, but the intimacy is deeper than any physical gesture so far. For the first time, the attraction between them is spoken aloud, living in the air between them with both parties fully aware, and neither of them turns away from it. This is the moment the slow burn stops being silent. Now that the truth has been named, not confessed, but acknowledged, the tone between them shifts again. No one else has returned to the room yet, or if they have, they are far enough away that the energy remains private between the two of them. Her question still lingers in the air, and his carefully measured response has signaled that he will not retreat. She doesn't tease him further. She lets the question stand and moves the moment forward with a different kind of intimacy. Conversation that is markedly more personal than before. Instead of asking him social small talk, she asks something that cuts deeper, what he does with his time, what he is working toward, what matters to him. Not out of politeness, out of genuine interest. Her voice is softer now, lower, requiring him to lean in slightly to hear her clearly. That lean itself decreases the distance between them again. He answers honestly, not trying to impress her. As he speaks, he notices her body language. She holds his gaze steadily, not blinking away. She shifts her weight slightly toward him instead of away, One hand rests lightly on the back of the sofa near his shoulder, close enough that he could feel the warmth of it if he moved an inch. Her listening is not casual, it is intentional, focused, almost disarming. She listens like someone who rarely gets surprised by people and wants to understand what kind of man he actually is. When she responds, she does so with stories of her own, brief glimpses into her life, not her resume. A moment where she almost quits something she loved. A risk she regrets not taking. A quiet loneliness that slips through not by admission, but by tone. There is a vulnerability under her composure that he hadn't expected, not weakness, but the kind of honesty that only shows itself when someone feels safe. The emotional goal of Part 4 is to create intellectual and emotional intimacy without physical escalation. The closeness is built through trust, mutual disclosure, and the kind of eye contact that feels like skin. As they speak, moments of quiet fall between sentences, not awkward but charged. In one such pause, she reaches for something on the table and lightly brushes his wrist with the side of her fingers. The touch is brief, but intentional this time. Either of them pretends it didn't happen. He feels it like a live wire, subtle, warm, deliberate. By the end of this part, the narrator is no longer questioning if she notices him. He is questioning what she intends to do with the awareness they now share. And she, for her part, is no longer simply amused by his attention. She is engaging with it, feeding it, testing how far he can stand before he falters. They are still upright, still polite, still fully clothed in composure, but the space between them now holds more than words. It holds permission, if either of them decides to take the next step. Time has passed, not by hours, but enough that the room feels different. More guests have left, coats have been taken, voices have grown sparse and tired. The quiet makes every small sound between them feel louder, the soft rustle when she shifts her weight, the low hum of her breathing when she pauses, the faint click of her ring against the glass she lifts. They have moved slightly closer without ever announcing it. Maybe they are now sitting on the same couch instead of across the room, or leaning against the same counter, angled toward one another. There is no casual distance left, only the kind people maintain when they are aware that touching is an option. Conversation slows, changes temperature. The tone is deeper now, not philosophical, not heavy, but emotionally honest in a way that leaves no armor on either side. She admits something that costs her to say, perhaps about feeling unseen despite being strong, or about the quiet cost of always being composed. The narrator listens without interrupting, and his silence is not passive, it is attentive, respectful, grounding. She notices. At some point, there is a pause, a long, unhurried pause, where either of them speaks. She doesn't fill it. He doesn't move away. Their eyes meet again, but this time there is no question inside it, only recognition. She exhales slowly, and in that exhale is the first sign of surrender, not romantic surrender, but the surrender of pretending nothing is happening. Then comes the near touch that almost breaks restraint. Her hand, the same one that rested near him earlier, slides from the back of the sofa to the space beside his thigh, close enough that he can feel the heat of it through fabric. Not touching, not grazing, just close, a distance so narrow that one careless millimeter would turn intention into act. His body reacts before his mind does, a tightening under his ribs, a pulse beating in the base of his throat, a stillness that freezes his limbs rather than moves them. She notices his stillness, she sees what the nearness does to him. For a second, she lets the possibility hang unresolved. Then she leans in slightly, not enough to close the distance, but enough that he can feel her breath skim his cheek when she speaks. Her voice is quiet, almost conversational in tone, but heavy in meaning. You don't say much, but you don't hide much either. That line lands with precision. She is telling him she sees through him, and she isn't pushing him away for it. Emotionally, this part ends at the absolute edge of escalation. Nothing physical has actually crossed the line, but the suspension is so thick the audience can feel it in their own chest. Both of them are aware that one small choice, a shift, a reach, a breath too close, would change everything. And the restraint is the only thing holding the moment in place. Right when it feels as though one more inch would collapse the distance between them, something interrupts. Footsteps in the hallway, a door opening, someone calling out a casual goodbye. Not a dramatic interruption, not a rescue, just the real world re-entering. And the moment must be contained before anyone else walks fully into it. She is the one who pulls back first, not in panic, not in guilt, but in a slow, measured withdrawal that preserves dignity. She straightens slightly, tucks a loose strand of hair behind her ear with a calm hand, and puts just enough space between them to look neutral again. But she doesn't leave. She doesn't break eye contact. The pullback is physical only, not emotional. The narrator feels the aftershock of the almost touch in his body, the warmth still lingering on his skin where her hand hovered, the way his breathing has not fully returned to normal. He says nothing yet, not because he is afraid, but because anything spoken too quickly would cheapen the moment. She seems to appreciate that restraint. It confirms for her that he is not reckless, not impulsive, not the type to chase what he doesn't understand. Once the interruption passes and they are alone again for a final beat, the dialogue between them becomes quieter, steadier, less charged but more honest. She asks him a question not meant to trap him, but to understand him, something like, "What exactly is it you keep looking for when you look at me?" It isn't flirtation. It is vulnerability framed as curiosity. She wants to know whether he sees her as something superficial, beauty, novelty, or something deeper. He takes a second before answering. When he does speak, he doesn't confess desire, he confesses perception. He tells her something true about the way she carries herself, or about the quiet strength she has, or about the way she listens differently from other people. His words reveal not hunger, but recognition. And that is more disarming to her than any romantic admission would have been. Her reaction is not dramatic. It is subtle, a pause in her breathing, a softening around the eyes, a faint shift in her posture like someone who has just been unexpectedly understood. She looks at him with a different kind of attention now, not amused, not curious, but affected. For the first time, she shows her vulnerability in plain sight. Not through tears, not through confessions, but through the very fact that she does not deflect or make a joke. She absorbs what he said, lets it land, and the silence afterward is not tense, but warm. By the end of Part 6, they have stepped away from the brink of physical escalation but gone deeper into emotional intimacy. The desire is no longer implied, it is present, alive, acknowledged, but carried with dignity. Both of them know the line was nearly crossed, and both know the conversation itself has already changed them more than a touch would have. The tension is no longer if something is happening, it is what it will cost if either of them choose the night is ending. Coats are being lifted from hooks, shoes slipped back on, the kind of gentle end of evening noise that signals closure. The two of them are no longer seated, but standing, not far apart, not close enough to be noticed. There is a social layer restored for the sake of the people still present, but beneath that surface, the earlier intimacy remains intact, untouched by the interruption. She speaks to others politely, effortlessly, and yet he can tell when her attention drifts back to him in brief, sideways glances. She is not pretending the moment never happened, she is simply holding it in private, the way adults do when something real must be carried discreetly. He answers a question someone asks him, but his voice is lower now, slower, changed. The evening has marked him. As people begin to leave, she gathers her things without hurry. When she walks past him toward the door, her hand grazes the back of his arm lightly, a touch so subtle it could be mistaken for nothing, but deliberate in pressure and in timing. It is a quiet acknowledgement, I remember. I am not walking away unaware. She doesn't stop, she leads him by that touch toward the exit where they can stand briefly without an audience. At the doorway or outside near the car, they share one last contained moment, standing close enough that their breath mingles in the cooler air. No one else is near enough to hear them now. She looks at him with the same composure as before, but there is softness behind it, the softness of someone who has been unexpectedly seen. She does not ask for his number. She does not give instructions. Instead, she says something that functions as a closure without erasing the door they opened, something restrained but heavy with subtext, for example. "Whatever that was, don't think I missed it." Or, "You surprised me tonight." Or, "Be careful with looks like that, they don't go unnoticed." Her tone is not warning, it is acknowledgement. The kind that leaves a mark. He answers with equal restraint, not asking for more, not pressing, but giving her something that confirms he is not ashamed of what passed between them. Something as simple as, "I know," or, "I wasn't trying to hide it." There is a brief silence where both of them could take a step closer, but neither does. The restraint itself becomes the final act of intimacy. Before she turns to go, she does one last thing, something small but physical enough to seal the memory, a gentle touch to his chest with her fingertips, or a soft squeeze of his forearm, or a brief brush of her cheek near his as she leans in to say goodbye. Not a kiss, just a contact that carries intention. Then she leaves. Not hurried, not flustered, she leaves like someone who is thinking. He watches her go, not with desperation but with a quiet certainty that something real has begun, not acted upon, not resolved, but awakened. The story ends not with a cliffhanger, but with a settled truth: their restraint did not neutralize the attraction. It dignified it, and made it unforgettable.